Hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk to you about how I rate books because I think it's really important to kind of hear how other people rate books and what they find important in a book and what they enjoy in a book to kind of see if you value the same things or not. And I think it's also important to kind of figure out how people are rating books because for some people, if they gave a book a 4 stars, that's just like a good book, but a 5 stars is a really good book. And for some people, a 3 stars is a good book. So I think it's great to kind of hear from different people how they rate books and what their rating looks like. So yeah, let's just get started with what I value most in books. So one of the things I value most in a book is what I would call like thematic integrity. And this is when a book is really good at keeping their theme very clear without saying it overtly. I don't need the book to tell me this book is about feminism or this book is about racism. I don't need it to say that word for word. I want to feel that throughout the book. I want to experience that and kind of know that it's there without it being so blatantly obvious. I know people call this show don't tell. But yeah, for me, it's like these themes need to be there for me to enjoy a book. One of the ways that books do this for me is like a subtextual delivery. I'm not getting it directly from the dialogue, but from what's not said, or the kind of ways that the dialogue is delivered. So yeah, I think that it's really this like subtext that is really important for me. And then the next thing I would say is I really want an organic evolution. I don't want it to be like right away, here's exactly what we're talking about. I want it to kind of grow out of the character's actions, or however the plot is delivered. I want it to come out of that, and it needs to feel organic. I hate when a book is really doing everything for me and just telling me everything. I really want it to give me this kind of way that I can have agency in what I think about the book and also the themes that are delivered. I want to be able to find that out for myself. So yeah, this is really important for me. Next, I know that I said I don't need a fast-paced book, but it's not just about that. I need the pacing and the structure to be completely intentional. So for me, that means that if this book is one that should be a book that is fast-paced, then the book should be fast-paced. But for instance, if the book doesn't need that, or it should feel slow because that's what the messaging is, for instance, with anxiety or things taking a long time or stress or kind of fitting into society, these themes, you don't always need fast-paced books. I really enjoy when the book's theming and pacing really match up, and this means that I don't necessarily need a fast-paced book. But on the other hand, if there is a slow book, I don't want it to be just slow because it was unintentional. I need the intent to be behind the slowness, and so some books will be just slow at certain parts, and I don't feel like that was intentional. It is just a slow part of the book. So for instance, I read Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil. Some parts of that were just way too slow for me, and it didn't need to be there. It didn't need to be there to get the message across of the book. So again, this just goes back to the intentionality of it. I need everything to be intentional. And this is very subjective because maybe something that I decided was not intentional, someone else thinks is intentional. So I think it's very much kind of the way that I see it, and it's very subjective. So maybe other people see it in a completely different way, and that's totally fine. This is just the way that I read books and the way that I enjoy them. But yeah, we might all see it differently, so keep that in mind. Another important part for me is the consistency, and I have this issue with so many like popular books. This is something that I feel like should be kind of obvious, and this one is maybe a bit more objective of a critique, because a lot of books will have characters that will do actions that do not match up with the character that's been built. So if the character is upset or has social anxiety or these kinds of anxious traits, and then all of a sudden they're fine to talk to someone easily, or they are going against bureaucracy, stuff like that, there needs to be a real reason for that change in the character. I hate when there's just like a change in the character that's so dramatic that does not fit with what we've been given. So this one is really key regarding the characters. And for the most part, I'm actually not that picky with characters, I think. But this is just one that really stands out to me and can drive me crazy and just puts me off a book, is if characters are doing things that just do not fit how their character has been built. And also, this is important for their flaws, because if they have flaws in certain ways, these flaws just need to be shown throughout the book. Or again, there has to be a clear change and reasoning for that change. Going along with this, there's also this difference between like agency of the character, like the character doing what the character would do, and puppetry, where I feel like the author needs to make something fit so that they make the character do that. And this is something that I will notice like right up front, and it will make things feel out of place. So it's something that I kind of look out for. Next up is the tone of the book. So this must come through like the writing style. And for me, it really needs to match exactly what the tone is of the book and what themes we're talking about and what kind of book it is. Is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Is it horror? Is it thriller? Because all of these are gonna have a different tone. And is it a more upbeat tone? Or is it more dark? And I feel like a lot of times the authors do a pretty good job at matching the tone, but other times, sometimes it just gives like this internal feeling of like something doesn't feel right. And usually I can pick that out as the tone is not matching the book. I feel like this happens more rarely, but it does happen. And I have this issue with Freida McFadden's books, actually. I feel like a lot of times the tone just does not match what's going on. And I think this is part of the strategy to help it be more twisty, because you're not expecting something so dark. But then the writing is very like happy and very kind of up. But again, I think this one is a bit less specific and hard to pin down because everybody reads differently and likes different things. So this is just something that I've noticed when I read that I enjoy if it's really cohesive and the tone matches what's going on in the book. This is also something that I look for when I read fantasy, which I don't read very often, but I think that using the tone, we can also connect that to the atmosphere, because the tone of the book is going to give you the feeling of the book and of the atmosphere and the setting where the characters are. So I think that this needs to be like very well used. And I think that a good example is fantasy, because there's a lot of world building, and it's really important to have that tone set to make it very clear where we are, what we're doing. Then I also want to talk about originality. And I love the idea of originality, although I know that nothing is original. Everything comes from something. We are always taking ideas from everywhere in our lives. So I don't want to make it seem like books have to be original, right? But I'm just going to classify it as this because I think that this is the best way to describe it. So yeah, I love originality, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the plot. It could be the characters that are original. You know, a character that develops in a really cool way that I haven't seen before. It can be the plot. It can be something that I haven't thought of. Like, for instance, Chuck Tingle's Lucky Day, like a non-probability event. Okay, like I'm sure things like this have existed, but just the way it was done felt so creative. And I love that. So, and also that book had great characters. So anyways, originality in the plot, originality in the characters, and also originality in the writing. Because I think that this is where authors sometimes don't put their originality in. So we've got originality in the plot, originality in the characters, and then also there's originality in the themes, which I don't necessarily mean like every theme has to be original, but because it's all coming from society and the life that we live in. But I do think that the way these themes are talked about is definitely, it can be original for sure. Or like, again, original in the sense that I'm talking about it as it feels original, not necessarily that it is. Like for instance, the book Black and Blues. This is such an incredible way to look at culture and racism, and I've just never thought of linking colors with culture. And of course they're interrelated. So anyways, I think that's super interesting, and that is another form of originality in my opinion. And then we could also consider like originality of the setting. The setting is always important, and I think that again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but doing something different, having a different setting. And of course, if you have fantasy, then it's really creating its own thing, which is extra creative. And I really like for authors to kind of really come through the pages and do something that they enjoy. Or even like the book Strange Houses, like so cool, so interesting, mixed media. Like I want more of that. I want this feeling of the author just doing what they want. So anyways, I like this originality. Again, I'm just calling it that, but it's not necessarily original, but I think everyone knows what I mean. And this is generally what kind of brings a book up a point, like a whole point, is this originality factor somewhere within. Doesn't have to be everything, right? But somewhere within, I want something that feels original or specifically tailored from that author. And then still talking about cohesion, for me, I really need the ending to just match the book. It doesn't have to be closed ending. It doesn't have to be happy ending. It doesn't have to be a sad ending. It can be anything. I just need it to match the book. Because if the book was, I don't know, extremely happy and then all of a sudden something crazy weird happens and that's it, okay, that just feels wrong, you know? Maybe some people like that because it feels twisty, but for me, it just doesn't flow. It just doesn't match. And a good example of this is the ending of The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, because in the end, it's kind of what we expect, but it still is so horrifying, and that perfectly matches the book. It really does. And I think that, you know, you could go for a really crazy twisty ending or an ending where maybe nothing happens, but I think it was just so well done because of the fact that it matched the book perfectly. And I don't want to give too much away if you haven't read it because it is relatively new, but I think that's just a really good example. So on top of that, I really care about this thematic payoff that comes out. This is like, we need to kind of have, we don't need a conclusion, but we need something that helps us kind of reflect on the themes that were going on throughout the book. And this one's hard because it doesn't always have to be like that. But I really think that a lot of the times it works like that, to have the ending that it kind of like doesn't need to wrap things up, but it needs to leave me thinking, right? If the book kind of like ends and wraps things up too well, you kind of just forget about it and end up not thinking about it. But it kind of has to leave you still thinking, oh yeah, this is what happened and this is how I feel about it, and give me something to think about, you know? I need something to think about, and I think that that often happens well in the ending. Okay, so now I've gone through the main things that I look for in a book, and I just wanted to talk about my ratings. So what's a 1-star and what's a 5-star? So for me, a 1-star is a book that I genuinely did not enjoy. I did not enjoy the book and I would not recommend it. And that's just kind of, that's that. It's not for me. And then a 2-star is a book that I could maybe see potential in, but I just feel like there's a lot of flaws going on. So this one I might recommend if someone is not bothered by those flaws that I am bothered by or that I see as flaws. Again, it's all subjective. So yeah, this is just a book that has these things that I don't like in it, that didn't necessarily move the plot forward or had, you know, lots of cohesion issues, or the character choices didn't make any sense to me, at least. And yeah, and then I would probably not recommend it, but I could still recommend it to people that are not bothered by the same things I'm bothered by. And then we have a 3-star, and for me, a 3-star is a good book. So I think a lot of people see 3 stars and thinks, you know, that's not a good book. This is just a good book, and it has flaws in my opinion, or certain things, aspects that I didn't like, if it felt slow for no reason, or some of the character choices maybe were like slightly off. But in general, it's good. And that's what a 3 stars is. It's an average rating, basically. And a lot of times I put books here that have been done before, or I feel like they've been done before, because I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what that is. You kind of took the same thing from another book, which I know all books are kind of like related in some way and referenced and whatnot, but some of them feel extra similar to other books, especially in mysteries. I have not had a really good year with mysteries because I just feel like it's always the same thing. And then moving on to 4 stars. So 4 stars is like, we are getting interesting. It means that I really enjoyed my time with it. And it doesn't even necessarily mean there were many flaws or like a couple of flaws. Generally, it's just that it didn't hit right. So sometimes that's just the tone is a little bit off, or certain things are just slightly off for me, but nothing big. Definitely nothing big. And then a 5-star for me, and this one's hard because some books I've given a 5-star and I'm like, okay, maybe that's more like a 4.5. But then on Goodreads, you can't do a 4.5, and a lot of ratings, you can't do 4.5. But this is basically a perfect book. I feel like the tone matches. I feel like everything is consistent. I feel like there were some great themes throughout. The ending was good, etc. It needs to kind of hit all of these key things for me. And then what really brings it up is the originality factor. If I'm reading a book and I feel like I have not read a book like this before, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so fun. And sometimes, just because I value that so much, it will bring a 4 stars to a 5 stars. If I feel like it's really original. And again, I know that ideas are not original, but original in the sense that they're original to me. And I've only read so many books. So something that I hadn't thought of myself or hadn't read before or couldn't imagine. So yeah, that's something that I really value. And I think that that bumps some books up quite high to a 5 for me. So yeah, anyways, that is it for the ratings. I hope it made sense, everything that I'm saying, and I'm probably missing some things that I do value, but I kind of have been reading books and really writing down what I enjoyed about them, and then coming back and thinking, okay, how can I put this into words and explain exactly what this is that I am enjoying? Let me know what you enjoy in books and what you don't, what you value, because everyone's different and it is really subjective. Maybe people in like the publishing industry, for them it's probably not subjective. It still is subjective though, but you know what I mean. They might have some more clear criteria, but this is just what I enjoy, and yeah, this is how I rate books in case anyone was interested. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. And yeah, see you next week.